A very long time ago, DC put out a massive crossover story titled Crisis on Infinite Earths that would give way to a modernized reboot of the DC universe, making it more accessible to modern audiences. Over the decades, DC would continuously reboot their universe, keeping some things canon while changing others, and fans, they're not always happy about that. Problem is, some fans want the stories to keep going, but the longer the stories go on for, the harder it is for new people to start reading them. However, this is changing with DC's new Absolute Universe, a reboot that acts as a separate continuity while the traditional stories continue. Let me address the elephant in the room here. This is basically copying what Marvel did with their Ultimate Universe back in the early 2000s, but that's not a bad thing. In fact, I think if you're going to do a reboot, having the reboot alongside the original stories makes both the fans and the newcomers happy. It probably wouldn't have worked before with DC given how many times they like to reset things, but taking a page out of Marvel's book at this point in time was the smart play for reasons I'll get more into in a little bit. Also, this isn't actually the first time DC has done something like this, so let me briefly shout out DC's Earth 1 universe, which was a series of graphic novels that pretty much did the same thing that the Ultimate Marvel Universe did, which was a modernized reboot in a separate continuity while the traditional stories kept going. But the problem with Earth 1 was that there were far fewer releases, way longer gaps between releases, not much of a consistent continuity between something like Batman Earth 1 and Superman Earth 1, and there was pretty much like no marketing for these stories at all. They were not being pushed by DC, but it seems like they're taking all of that into consideration by pushing this new Absolute Universe quite heavily. On top of Absolute sounding similar to Ultimate and both these comic lineups serving the same functions for both companies, why is this called the Absolute Universe? Well, the idea is that these stories are stripping away all the extra details, all the things you know about these characters, while still retaining their core, still staying true to what these stories are about, but allowing writers to take them in an all-new direction and being a fresh jumping-in point for new readers. It is their absolute core versions of these characters, while all of the other details are something brand new. The thing is, these stories are only just getting started, so there's not much to talk about regarding the specifics, but the premises alone are really interesting. We've gotten this behemoth of a Batman wielding a bat axe who was raised without money or even Alfred, but he is fighting super spry Alfred as a big old Batman here. We've got emo Superman in this cool solar powered armor fighting a bunch of peacemakers, yes, the John Cena kind. Wonder Woman looks awesome too, taking inspiration from Berserk, and she was raised as a witch in hell, which is something completely different. There's also a Flash book that's coming out featuring a young Wally West, and while there aren't many details, it certainly looks interesting based on the art. On premise alone, these stories are incredibly intriguing, which is exactly what you need to do to get people interested in reading them, especially newcomers. As I mentioned earlier, this is a really good move by DC that has the potential to reel in many new readers. Looking at DC over the past decade, and especially in the past couple years, they've had a lot of huge failures in terms of movies, TV, video games, but the one area that seems pretty unaffected is comic books. If DC can somehow market this new series properly to a wide, general audience, they have the potential to get people invested in these characters and stories despite the bad reception they've gotten. There isn't just the potential for bringing in new audiences either. There's the potential to just tell an excellent, consistent, and cohesive story across this new universe. It's not the first time a reboot or alternate universe story has been done before. Like I said, DC's Earth 1 and Marvel's Ultimate Comics have done this. So if they can learn from the mistakes that stopped those respective series from truly making as much as an impact as they could have, Earth 1 falling into obscurity and Ultimate Comics doing just a lot of weird, confusing crap, they could really do something special here. The Absolute DC universe may just be starting, but I'm keeping a close eye on it. It may be an idea that's been done many times before, but the setup for each of these stories is genuinely intriguing. The potential to create an excellent, cohesive series based on past concepts is exciting, and the potential for DC to improve their public image for general audiences is really important for them. I guess you could say this is absolutely awesome. Okay, that's it. That's all I've got to say. Video's done. Goodbye.